Okay, so today we have another great guest speaker that we continue to bring into the program. I met Jack Kassel last year, and he so impressed me with not only his business acumen and what he has done over the years, but moreover, his support of the entrepreneurial community through the active organization that he participates in. So let's give it up for Jack.
Here we go. My company is called Lake Crescent Incorporated. I have a couple other companies with that and a brand called Guru of Outsourcing. And I'm now working on a new website to rebrand under the name of Kassel Imports. What we do is that we source and we bring in mostly import, some plastic films and other materials. We're a raw materials supplier to manufacturers in North America, making products such as artificial Christmas trees, holiday decorations, some special adhesive tape applications, which is here, some packaging. We also do work in disposable wipes, and sort of with the Guru of Outsourcing, anything else that you might want. Mostly in China, we'll do the sourcing, deliver turnkey so that our customers can can focus on their marketing and sales, not worry about manufacturing their products. So I'm going to start today with
You can use the internet? If not, I'm going to shut this off. Okay, so you're on, I'm late now. Sure.
I'm old school. We're going to start with an origin story. Well, first of all, you mentioned the entrepreneurship. I'm a 20-year member of the Entrepreneurs Organization. That's a global non-profit organization. It has about 175 chapters around the world. New York is the chapter to which I belong. It's the largest in the world, about 260 members, roughly. And there is the barrier to entry there for Entrepreneurs Organization is $1 billion in revenue per year. We do have an accelerator program in which we take smaller or newer companies with a minimum of $250,000 in revenue and run them through a program over the course of the year, which sounds similar to what Ted is doing here with one session about finance, one session about human resources, one session about marketing and sales, etc., in order to help these smaller, younger entrepreneurs grow their companies and qualify for our entrepreneurs group eventually and become a member. We do have a business plan competition globally, the Entrepreneurs Organization, for those who are interested. And there is a Brooklyn chapter too that started up or split off from New York about 2 years ago. So, like the comic books, we're going to start with an origin story, how my business came to be. It's a third generation family business. So this is an Iron Cross. This was awarded to members of the German Army, and my grandfather got this for fighting in the cavalry on horses in World War I. He was awarded this in 1935. There were about 5 million of these given out to former members of the German Army in commemoration of 20 years since World War I. Unfortunately, 4 years later, he had to flee the country. With his family, he left a very successful construction materials business behind. He had to leave all his property, his big house in town, etc., and came to America. So the lesson here is resilience. He came to America with very little and then started up in business again. I have a financial statement of his, which we've kept from Kassel Export Company for the tax year of 1945. And it shows that he had about $50,000 in revenue that year, which is about $600,000 in today's dollars. I think that's not bad for a country coming out of a war, just finishing a war, starting a new business. And he was one of the first civilians to return to Germany for business, started trade there, and I always thought that was fascinating. So in terms of resilience, came here with very little and started up again, and business which has its origins in what I still do now. The next story, and a lot of some of the lessons learned that I have are reflected in the video that we saw earlier and some of the speakers as well. I'll be sort of confirming what they said. My dad joined in the early 50s. He joined his father's business and started in the vinyl business, PVC. Christmas decorations used to be made out of aluminum. This new PVC or vinyl was created, and my father imported it from Europe and imported also the machinery to manufacture these garlands and these trees, etc. The German factory that makes the machinery, I still do business with them. I gave them an order earlier this week, and that's from the 1960s. So the next lesson or learn has to do with reputation and relationships. How important it is to build those, to be a straightforward person, to build those relationships. It's like money in the bank. It's an asset that you can use later. For example, Ted mentioned that we met. We met very briefly. We just started talking. We had dinner. Ted invited me to come here. I don't know what that's going to lead to, but just being open to relationships and building trust with people and getting them to know you. You don't know where it's going to lead, but it's something that can pay off later. And I have two examples in my business where that was important. One was with my dad. He had hired a bookkeeper or controller of some kind who was nervous that our company was going to go out of business. And so he started coming in early, sorting through the mail. He would remove any collection letters or letters of concern because of unpaid bills. He would remove invoices and make them disappear. We got incoming telexes, that's old-fashioned email or fax, from Europe, and he would remove those. So my father didn't know that bills were not being paid, but my father had a great reputation with his suppliers. And eventually one of them just called him and said, hey Joe, what's going on? You're not paying your bills, you usually do. And he found out that he was way behind in payments when he thought that he was doing fine. This bookkeeper wasn't stealing money, he was just kind of making the financial picture of the company look better than it was. So in this case, my father's reputation maybe didn't serve him well because he was given maybe too long of a leash, but it also helped him because the suppliers trusted him and knew him, and he worked out a plan to repay and over time what was owed. And I found myself in a similar situation, the recession, 2008, 2009. Sales for a key product just really ground to a halt. I had a lot of inventory and no way to pay it through my sales. So I had friendships built up with the supplier, I had a trust built up, I had a track record, and here too I was able to negotiate a payment plan over time. I said, this is what I'm going to do, and I did it. I made it happen, and as the woman said in this video, I talked to people, I didn't hide, I let them know what was going on, and that's extremely important. So build your reputation, build your relationships, because there's things there that you can cash in later. Financials. Know your financials. When I started in the company, my dad took me to his attorney, and the first thing he said was, if you don't know the financials of your company, then you don't have a company. I took that to heart. I went to a financial or an accounting course for non-financial executives after that. The rest I've learned just by doing and hands-on. The example I'll give in business, how that can affect you and negatively, again, go back to my dad. 1986, at the end of the year, he asked his controller for a financial budget for the coming year, and the controller didn't have it ready. He needed more time to work on it. And this kept going on, and through the first half of the following year, 1987. And by the time he had a budget presented to him, it showed that the company was in dire financial straits. A month later, we went to meet with our attorneys and said, it's not a question of if you're going to go out of business, you're going out of business. And the fact that my dad was not on top of his financials in a timely manner was extremely negative. And in fact, the company went bankrupt that following year. From there, we kind of took what was working in the business, moved it into the new company, like Crescent, that's my company, and I started taking over management and ownership of that company in 1988. What I do now, every year I have my budget, focusing on cash flow first and income statement or P&L second, and I update it every month. I get my financials, I put it in myself, because by doing it myself, I can see what is being spent, and I can question if something looks out of order, it's too high, it's too low, it doesn't make sense. And then I adjust for the rest of the year as need be if I know something's going to change ahead. So extremely important to stay on top of the financials of your company. Even if you have a financial officer who's doing this, ask him or her to share, understand it, ask questions, be agitated if you don't know what the finances are in your company now and going forward. The next lesson, or next thing, to Morgan's point, if you will, has to do with attorneys, contracts and agreements. Don't get cheap with attorneys, with hiring professionals to do what you can only do partway yourself, and to do it properly. And here I'll give two examples. We had a contract with an American factory to do their sales. We were commissioned salespeople for them from the beginning. And we had a contract negotiated with our attorney. Now I will say, when you do a negotiation with another party, that you don't need to bring an attorney in at an early stage, from my experience. Negotiate the points you want with the other party. Get to 80% of where you need to be, and then bring in the attorney and explain to them what, these are the points we have agreed upon. Now the attorney will then add the other layers, the other clauses, the other legalese that are important and that are needed. And that's when the attorney will then start, billing you for your time. So you've saved some time by negotiating first, but then do bring them in at the end. So we had a contract with this American factory, and there was clauses or covenants in there about what happens if they wanted to fire us, if they wanted to buy us out. My dad used to say, a contract, you want to sign it and put it in a drawer, and hopefully you never have to look at it again, but this was not the case with this American factory. They sent us a letter terminating our contract with them, but we had a very protective arrangement in there, that they would be paying us out for about 3 years and a substantial amount of money. And this clause, having this protection in this contract, was very important because this allowed us, I didn't pocket this money, this allowed us the time and the resources and the money to find alternate sources for the same materials to compete with this factory that had fired us. And it served its purpose that way. It gave us time. We ended up going overseas, to China, to Mexico, to find other sources for the same products. So having this strong legal agreement was very helpful in that case. Just looking at my timer here. Good. On the other hand, 20 years an entrepreneur in that organization, as I'm going to keep doing it until I get it right. About 5 years ago, I brokered a deal for a machine built in New Jersey, being sold to a company in Texas, to manufacture, to package K-cups, or competitors to K-cups on the Keurig machines. You saw about 3 years ago, all sorts of other products came on the market. We wanted to be at the forefront of that. I was going to be supplying not just the machine, but the raw materials for this. Everybody was going to make a lot of money. So I worked out an agreement with the machine builder. He gave his price. I added 10% to it with everybody's agreement. And I would be paid this 10% commission on the machine when the machine was delivered, worked, and was paid for. And everything was great. I did not go to attorney. I put in the clauses that I felt were protective for me and fair to the other people, etc. But I didn't get full protection. And the downside is that it's not anticipating every contingency. The person here said, talk to other people, by all means. Brainstorm what could go wrong and try to protect yourself in that agreement to what could go wrong. What I didn't anticipate in the case of this coffee K-cup machine, it was very simply that the machine never worked. It was built, it was designed, it was built, it was delivered, it was demonstrated, but it never worked consistently or at the speed or efficiency that had been guaranteed. And as a result, the machine builder got paid for the machine, but only, let's say, 90%. They never got the last 10% that they were supposed to get after the machine was delivered and was working. And over the course of a couple of years, they tried repairs and modifications and redesigns, and it never worked the way it was supposed to. Never got paid their last 10%, and according to my smart letter of agreement, I was only going to get paid my commission after the machine was paid in full. The machine was never paid in full, and I got 0 on that deal. So here's a lesson, yeah, I'm not so smart as I think. Get other people involved, get legal, any other attorneys involved for the final touches on your agreements and your contracts. Extremely important. The other area, and I haven't had experience in this, but I've learned about it, when you're starting your business and you have partners in it, sometimes you'll scratch something out maybe on a piece of paper, but it's very important to have really sound legal documents which memorialize your partnerships, your agreements, your buy-sells, which is to say what happens if one of the partners wants to leave the business, that it clearly defines that the other partner can buy them out usually. Or let's say one of the partners dies. The widower has the stock and suddenly becomes a partner in the business. Well, very often the first partner doesn't want that to happen. So you have a contract, you have a buy-sell agreement explaining what will happen if one of the shareholders wants to leave or disappears, etc. And then the corollary to that is to finance that agreement, the buy-sell. If the company has a certain valuation, after 1 year maybe it's very low and the other partner gives $20,000 back and it's done. But as that business grows, that valuation can grow, but very often a growing company cannot finance that buy-sell agreement. Very often it's done through life insurance. If a partner dies, then there's life insurance money to pay off that widow or widower. But that agreement should be visited every couple of years depending on the growth of the company, because what worked in 2016, suddenly in 2019, it's going to be underfinanced. So create a buy-sell agreement with partners and then revisit it. It's a living document. It has to be amended on a regular basis.
Everybody understand that? Because that Jack just went through there is very vital, all right? And I can't overstate this more. If you have a problem, and it could be even a brother or sister as your partner, and we've talked about getting involved with family and businesses, because if it doesn't work out, you can say goodbye to your family, okay? It's a real problem. So if you don't have this agreement that he's talking about, it's called a buy-sell agreement, you wouldn't normally think about this thing as the first thing. Your attorney probably would, but you're going to need to figure out how to get rid of somebody, because you can't, if somebody doesn't want to be your partner, you can't force them to be your partner, but you need a way out. You need a way out. You need to have a document, like Jack says, that spells out how you get out. It could be that somebody died, somebody's disabled, or somebody just doesn't want to be part of it. But in business, this document is very, very important. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention 10-minute family businesses. You're not just maybe blowing up a friendship, but you blow up your family in some cases where there's little money involved, nobody cares. When there's money involved, suddenly there's in-laws and spouses and everybody wants to have a word.
You had a family business. Did that ever happen to you? Family business?
No, because we were just single practitioners in our generations. My brothers and sisters were not interested in the business, are not in the business.
Okay.
And so I never had to answer to a sibling, if you will. Because of the bankruptcy, Dad withdrew ownership and I took over, so we didn't have those issues. So those are some of the lessons, if you will, that I've learned over time. Talk about getting good professional help when needed, knowing your financials, building your reputation and your relationships, etc., and resilience as well. Now,
did you see the video of the girls from Birchbox today talking about the accountant and lawyer? You caught that today? They gave the accountant and lawyer a little piece of the business instead of paying the money that they didn't have. So sometimes you have to make a decision, and it's a hard decision to make. Do you give your professional a piece of the business, or you charge a higher rate, or you let them pay it off over time? Because that little piece of the business, could you imagine if Mark Zuckerberg gave his accountant 5% of his business today? The guy would be worth $5 billion, all for just starting up his accounting thing. So you have to give and take with that kind of thing.
one thing that reminds me, the woman talking about the community bank and getting a loan. So you go into your loan officer at your bank and they arrange for your line of credit or your loan, And then they say, okay, we'd like you to sign a personal guarantee, which means you put, if you have a house, you put your own personal assets up against this loan. And then you start to get nervous because, whoa, it's one thing if I have a problem in my business and my business fails. But, I don't want this to go into my family as well, and then my home where my family lives. Well, it was very simply explained to me that if I don't have faith in my own business personally, why should a third party, a bank, an investor, a venture cap, why should they have faith in my company that I don't have myself? And that kind of spelled it out for me in very simple terms that, yeah, okay, I get it. And so personal guarantees are standard practice for those types
And one of the big reasons maybe not to go into business is you lose your house, lose your car, lose your kid's bike. Everything is going to be gone. You're going to take everything you have. Okay, so you better be pretty sure your business works and your concept before you sign that document and take that loan from the bank. Good point.
When my dad went bankrupt, he had, many years before, put the house in my mother's name and not his. So the personal guarantee was his and the house was not affected, and that was pretty
And
smart.
that's why people put things in their wife's name. You ever hear that over the years? Putting in my wife's name? That's great until your wife's playing around with the pool boy. And now she has your house and a young love on top of it. Okay, now you have nothing at the end of it, right?
So I wanted to, that ends sort of the presentation. I did want to talk to Ted about this, about a little problem or challenge that came up very recently. And I'd like to brainstorm with you for ideas about what action I should possibly take, who I can talk to in this situation. I'll give you a brief overview. And so I mentioned this is one of the products I sell. This yellow vinyl, it's a release liner. Release liner is what you peel away from tapes and labels and Band-Aids, and it's everywhere. It's a very special one. It's a technical product, and it's used for a lot of Teflon products. This is a Teflon tape of sorts. It's used for, in this case, for industrial bakeries, conveyor belts, where you're having thousands of cookies a minute coming down the line, and this is heat resistant, and the cookies will not stick to this Teflon. So I sell this release liner. I've got about 8 customers in the U.S. or North America. Steady business, it's used up, it's disposable. Next month, same order, and it's a really nice piece of business for me. I'm sort of the lone supplier on this in North America. So 2 weeks ago, I read an article in the Plastics Trade magazine that a customer of mine in upstate New York, that the town in which they're in had found contamination in the water, which was derived from a chemical that used to be used in the making of Teflon. They were, now that since this water contamination in Michigan is taking place, this is a very hot button issue right now. The state was all over it. The company said we're going to put $3 million to help remediate. So the super fund has been activated. That's where the state cleans up. They're providing bottled water for the residents of the town. All right, then 2 weeks later, front page of the New York Times. Same story, but now it's getting higher publicity. The state, everybody is working on this. The townspeople, the lawyers are coming in now to try to start, suits and class action suits. And then the article mentioned another company 10 miles down the road, another town that had the same contamination. Well, that's customer 2 of mine that uses this. These 2 customers combine for about 40% of my resale business, material that I stock and then sell. And so this is an important issue for me. Both companies have indicated that the chemical that's contaminating is one that hasn't been used for a long time in their production of the Teflon. So this contamination could have happened decades ago. It's just now being discovered or brought to light, or maybe people have known it for a while and now they're only now starting to care. So I'm concerned. Is this an existential? Is this a problem that's going to shut down my customers? Are they going to have to stop production? Are they going to have to cut back, change something? Is this going to affect my sales on my product that right now is sort of like clockwork every month? It was the slowdown of sales of this product in 2008 that caused me my financial problems at that time. So I'm just wondering, what would you suggest? How do I inform myself? Who should I talk to? How can I learn? How can I stay on top of this issue with these two customers now in order to protect myself
Let me
and
ask
my
a much
interests?
more important question. Has anybody come after you for being the supplier of that product?
No, because this is an inner stable, unrelated product that I sell. This is the Teflon, the
Oh,
brown
that's
part.
the Teflon, so
Yeah.
you don't make the Teflon, they get that somewhere else?
They get that and process that, but that doesn't mean that someone wouldn't come after me, you know?
Right.
Who knows?
Oh, yeah, I mean, any class action will be starting television ads before you know it.
Erin Brockovich, I don't know,
Right.
they know, she was up there.
They've
She
heard
visited
of
that town.
Brockovich, no doubt about that.
So, a part of my major is chemistry,
Mhm.
and I'd recommend that you hire an independent researcher specifically for your release liner, so that if anything comes up, you always have research that's been done and tested on your release liner that says there is no way you're liable for it. And then you give that to your clients before anything can come to you, so that you show them, hey, listen, I hear you're having this problem. Without you even asking me, I wanted to go ahead and show you that this isn't us.
Here's
and
the
we're here to
science
help
that
you out.
backs up, that's a great
That
idea.
this is a stable product, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I could have the manufacturer of this in Europe spend the money
They
to
could.
do that.
Yep.
It's their
Yeah.
ass, excuse me.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's a real solid idea. What else? Any other ideas for Jack? It's a tough one, huh?
I called the customers, I contacted them. One of them called me back, the executive VP. He said, kind of gave me a standard answer, it's business as usual, we have no intention of stopping, and please don't talk to anybody about this. So, I did get that.
For sure. Any questions for Jack about his business or any entrepreneurial questions you may have for him as he has a business? Oh, go ahead.
A question. You source the release liners from China,
No, this one product still comes from Germany.
still from Germany.
Yeah.
Have you done independent research on your own, not on the manufacturer's part, but on your own to see like what's the makeup?
The chemical makeup?
Yeah.
I'm
Or
familiar with
trusting
it. I don't have any, well, we've been in the business, I don't know, 50
Yeah.
years with this product.
I've done business
I
with
haven't
China.
done any, China is different.
China messes around a little
Yeah,
bit.
China's not if something goes wrong, it's when
Yeah.
something goes wrong.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, Jack, thanks a lot for coming.